Well, hey there, little mama. You know, talking about men and women it's an easy thing to do, although sometimes it can be difficult when we start talking about the differences that we have and how we interact and all of that. And if you're interested in learning the differences between men and women, and if you're interested in figuring out how you can really love your man, who is a man, then I suggest you watch my earlier episode with Alison Armstrong. And I'm going to tell you about her in a minute. You probably already know her if you've been hanging around me for very long. She's the frog farmer lady, remember? Yeah. But today we're going to talk about your kids and raising your children to be men and women and understand the differences between the two so that they can relate together well and have good relationships. You know, good relationships between men and women just don't happen when they're men and women. They happen when they're kids. It happens on the playground. It happens when you want your son to have manners and you want your daughter to have manners and what that means. And just all the way through, there's little things that we can do along the way to help them solidify their identity as male and female. And with everything that's going on and all the questions you're asking me, I thought it'd be fun to let's not talk about all the weird stuff or the stuff that may not be weird but be sad, and get to what we can do in our homes with our kids. So we're talking solutions today with Alison Armstrong, and we'll be with you in just a sec. So let's get to it. Welcome to the Moms Like Us podcast, where moms just like you learn strategies, systems, and skills through expert interviews and real-life insight designed to take your marriage, mothering, and home to the expert level. Hi, I'm Mona Corwin, your mom mentor and host, author, international speaker, and the founder of the Moms Like Us Academy. I've been coaching moms for over 25 years, and I have some really good news for you. Motherhood isn't a natural talent. It's a skill, and you can learn it. You can crush it at motherhood instead of motherhood crushing you. So let's get to today's show. Okay, so we are going to start in just a second, but I want to tell you a little bit about Alison if you're not used to me talking about her, you don't know who she is. Alison is an author and a speaker and a renowned relationship specialist. She has spent her life helping men and women understand and appreciate one another. And yes, she believes that we are different, and different can be wonderful if you know how it works. And she is an expert at teaching so creatively. Alison has cracked the code. She has cracked the code between men and women. And I, for one, am eternally grateful because she's telling everyone how. And you can find out how too. Dennis Prager counts her as one of his very special guests, and she's been on his show for hundreds of times. I don't even know how many. We tried to figure it out, and we couldn't count them all. Her books, The Queen's Code, and The Keys to the Kingdom have transformed relationships, and you can find her books everywhere. This is one of her books. This is the original one. I'm just bragging because I have one because you can't find them anymore. And this is the new cover, and so you can find it in the new cover. Here's The Keys to the Kingdom, and there's also a workbook for the Queen's Code. And you can take the classes, but let me tell you a secret. If you really, really want to know, come here, come close. Alison has courses and interactive series that will help you learn, and there's a lot of them, and they're specialized, and you can really, really learn. You know, podcasts are great, books are great, but podcasts just inspire you, and books kind of tell you, but when you want to know how, and you really want to know why, you should take a course, and I suggest that you take one of Alison's. So right now, without further ado, I'm going to bring up my friend. I count her as my friend because I know her better than she knows me. I told her I'm not a stalker, but, well, maybe I am. I'm going to bring Alison up right now out of the green room.
I'm here.
Hi, the magic of video. I can't say TV. We're not on TV. That's old fashioned.
Yeah,
Yeah.
feels like it.
Anyways, I'm so excited for you to be here. I forgot to tell everybody that you also love horses and you have a course about horses. It's called
Well, we have
Core.
a core partnership. We have a course about partnership where we team up with horses because they embody partnership.
Yeah, you've got one of those coming up too, I know. And then there's lots of courses that come out through the year. And you live in Colorado and you have
Mhm.
2 girls and 1 boy. And
Mhm.
we're so happy to have you. Thanks for coming and visiting me again.
You're welcome. I'm glad to be here.
We have been talking, so I think we're just going to go back into our conversation that we had at the beginning when I didn't have the button pushed.
Yeah.
Alice and I were talking about how all of the things that are going on in our culture to get some confusion over male and female and the differences between the two. And Allison has some thoughts about that. Allison, help me understand, has this confusion always been here between men and women, male and female?
Oh boy. I don't know if it's always been here, but I think it probably has always affected
Mm.
more people than we knew. And could I kind of situate the way that I see what's been happening?
Yeah, please.
Um, so, for a very long time, there was a conversation that about both gender and roles. So, gender and roles were glued together. And Jean Auel, who wrote kind of The Cave Bear, actually puts forth that our cousins, Neanderthal, they actually had their brains were situated so differently that they couldn't actually learn opposite roles from their gender. They did not have the mental capacity to do it. They didn't have the
Wow.
memories to do it, that they just couldn't do it. And for a very long time, in at least the cultures that I'm familiar with, which would be first world cultures, it's been like that, gender and roles. And here in the US, and I think it also happened in other countries involved in World War I and World War II, but especially World War II, because of the necessity of war, the roles of women, right? That we are supposed to be wives, mothers, housekeepers, a period of ingenue, right? You know, you're an out society and you find a mate if you're of that social and economic standing. But it didn't really matter. We were wives and mothers, whether we had more or less economic resources. And in World War II, so many of us, right? The story of Rosie the Riveter, so many of us left our homes, left our children, maybe with our mothers, and we went to work and we produced. We produced things that were important to the war effort. We made things. We made things that weren't eaten. We made things that didn't have to be washed to be used again. We made bombs. We made airplanes. Right? We made boots for the soldiers. We made things. And there's a satisfaction. There's a certain satisfaction in making something that's considered very important. And and I think that was the beginning of the unwillingness of so many women to go back to a role that, if you look at it at the end of the day, was very hard to have satisfaction. you couldn't you couldn't count so easily what we were doing in educating our children, for example, or the laundry that's endless, the dishes that's endless, the repetitiveness of the cooking. You couldn't count it, and we didn't have the status, the importance of what we were producing if we went back to those roles. And I think that was the beginning. That was the beginning of, no, we can be more and we can do more than this.
But what about the value of the most valuable thing? Children.
Well,
What
it,
happened to that?
what happened to that? Well, um, let me finish how we got to
Oh,
here, at
okay.
least as I can see
Okay.
it.
All right.
Um, because what happened in wanting to break free of those roles, the um, the approach and the approach that was taken was equality through sameness, for us to have rights, the right to those jobs, the right to credit, the right to own property. um, Beginning of the century and before that, women were property. We didn't own property. We were property, and our fathers and then our husbands or brothers could do with what they saw fit for the well-being of the status and the economic resources and the standing of the whole family. So the approach was taken that we are equal because we are the same. And the sameness has been very tricky. And there are people who've been trying to forward understanding of the differences between men and women. And like John Gray was picketed, a man devoted to his wife and celebrating who she is. He literally was picketed when he started teaching based on men are from Mars, women are from Venus. Luann Brizendine, neuropsychiatrist who studied functional MRIs and hormone levels at the same time, associating the hormone levels with brain activity. I mean, I can't even count how many hours she has spent doing this. But when she put forth the female brain, she was she was castigated for by women for saying that women were different. And so it's it's all messed up. It's all messed up and mixed up and has social and economic and consequences. So there's a lot of heat, and what I mean by that is it's survival related. So it calls up survival instincts and fight and flight and freeze reactions. And and then so going from sameness, and then we're different but we're equal. And in many ways, I mean, honestly, I've said this since the 80s. If someone was looking and accurately tracking the statistics and representing it, they would have said we're having a revolution in the workplace. and and the reason for that revolution in the workplace is because what's natural to men in a testosterone based system, and we can talk about that some more in the youngins, is for the result to be the most important thing. It's all about the result. And so men, yes, there are some misogynists. Most men are not misogynists. All they care about the result is the result, and they'll hire the person best able to produce the result, and they don't care if if you have a STEM or not. Like they don't care with or without. They just care about results, about capacities, about getting things done. And this is one of the things that, because of the way that estrogen shapes the brain, women have a sensitivity that Luann Brizendine talks about in the female brain that's based in being pickled in extreme amounts of estrogen from the 21st day of gestation to 2 years old. This is why little girls are so enchanting. They glow with their estrogen bombs. It's because of that amazing hormone. And but what goes with that is an intense sensitivity to our environment and to whether and who needs to be pleased, and are they pleased or not, moment by moment by moment. And I know grown women can relate to this. And consciously and a lot, mostly unconsciously, adapting to the perception. And so in a society where what's valued is productivity, what's valued is accountability, what's valued is being in charge. How much are you in charge of? Since that's valued in our culture, women have just stepped right into it. So something that at first was in a survival as a nation situation, and then has now become survival of our families. And I talk to women all the time about being a queen, right? It's called the Queen's Code on purpose. And that what we have to wrestle with is what it is to embody a queen, which means accountable for certain ways of being. We have these certain ways of being, like loving and compassionate and patient and kind and generous, that literally change everything. And for sure, they change a child's life. And so a friend of mine named it the accountable feminine. The accountable feminine, yeah. The accountable, yes, Leslie Rice. So the accountable feminine is being accountable for how are we being. And I think we got to talk about this last time, that we can affect how we're being by having certain needs met and understanding what those needs are for us individually, and getting them met is critical. It's critical to what I call filling our tanks so that we just can overflow. We don't have to okay, be loving, be loving, be loving, be patient, be patient, be patient. No, we just are loving. We're overflowing. When our tanks are full, we overflow as our highest values. So there's this tug of war that women have between these ways of being that are so powerful and magical. And by the way, they make a huge difference in the workplace if we're conscious of them. They actually can enhance productivity from everyone. Domination only goes so far. Hierarchy only goes so far. There's such a difference that we can make in productivity with the accountable feminine, instead of just grinding it out, pushing through while snapping people's heads off. So the same, not same, different, not different. I think what's happening with that is then like a head-on collision with the value that we have of the uniqueness of an individual. And in all of my study of this since 1991, I would assert that 95% of our behavior comes from human instincts. And then those human instincts have different expressions based on how our brains were originally shaped and how they're continuously affected by the gender hormones. A very small percentage, maybe 1%, maybe max 2%, is individual differences. And yet, when we honor our individual differences, that's part of each of us getting to express the best of who we are, getting to make the contribution we may have come here to make. And so and you know this because you do pay attention to my curriculum. And since 2017, our online curriculum has been in the context of honor yourself first or all is lost. Because if you think about it, Mona, right now, if you were to pause and look at it, the amount of information you have about you, your mental state, your emotional state, your physical state, energy, hunger, aches and pains, right? Like the amount of information you have about you is 1,000 times more that I would have about you, even if we were best friends, right? And so if we're not paying attention to ourselves and representing ourselves truthfully in partnership with the people who care about us and want to give us what really matters. That's the tricky part, is getting to what really matters. And each of us have, do you know what a trim tab is? Do you know
No,
that expression?
I do not.
So imagine an ocean liner, right? Imagine an ocean liner, and the ocean liner wants to change direction, right? So in order to change direction, the rudder has to move so that the interaction between the ship and the water, right, is causing, right? The rudder and the ship and the cloud is causing the ship to change direction. Well, those rudders are enormous, thousands of pounds. So we could have all kinds of machinery to change them, and we do, but one of the best tricks is that there's something on the rudder called a trim tab, and it's much, much smaller. But if you flip the trim tab moves the rudder and takes this monstrous thing and shifts it. Well, we have trim tabs for ourselves.
Yeah.
We have trim tabs for ourselves to shift from, for example, from being depressed to being able to be happy. That's like moving an ocean liner. And so many things about being human are depressing. There's so many sources of pain.
Yeah.
But if we can find our own trim tabs by looking to ourselves, and I want to give you an example of this, okay? One of the biggest differences in the spectrum, right? In the whole spectrum, if you take an open state of mind or a gathering state of mind where we have this acute awareness of everything in our environment, it's what gives us scan vision. We're so much better at finding things because we just go, it's not here. And then we go to another room. Nope, not here. We just scan. I asked my son once, he came to me once and he said, Mom, my finder is broken. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, when you're looking for something, you just see it. And I said, well, so tell me about when you look for something. How do you look for something? And he said, well, in my room, first I look on the shelf, and then I look on the bed, and then I look on the floor, and then I look on my desk. And he was describing single focus. He wasn't scanning like we would in a meadow for ripe berries or something medicinal. He had to focus. He's hunting what he was looking for. And it wasn't that he made himself focus. That's how his brain was built. I mean,
and that's a male thing, right? That's a male thing.
That is a testosterone thing.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah.
And most men have between 15 and 30 times more testosterone than women.
So we're estrogen, they're testosterone. This sounds like a really good deal.
Well, it can be a really good deal, except half of a woman's testosterone, which is the source of ambition, sex drive, a sense of well-being, and focus. Okay, so it's all of those things. Even though we have much less than theirs, it's radioactive. We're highly sensitive to testosterone. So, for example, when my husband was alive, and I began taking bioidentical testosterone as a tablet, my dose was 2 milligrams per day. I had 2 milligrams per day. My husband's dose was 200 milligrams. They use more, need more. It's rocket fuel, and every time they commit to something, they're launching a rocket.
Yeah.
So the thing that happens, though, is we change. And this is where the honoring ourselves as individual on the spectrum matters so much.
Mm-hmm.
So as we get older, as women, half of our testosterone, when we're born, half of our testosterone comes from the ovum, comes from the eggs, the unripe eggs in our ovaries. The other half comes from our adrenal glands. Well, we have the most eggs in utero, millions. By the time we're 37 years old, most have less than 10,000. Right around about age 29, so many have just degraded and disappeared, just dissolved, along with the testosterone that they were giving our bodies, that our brains register an emergency, a fertility emergency, not because it's counting eggs, but because it's measuring testosterone. And so we're switching over to being entirely dependent upon our adrenal glands. They're in our back, right? And then if we're stressed, something called the Prager gland will steal, it's called the Prager steal, will take the testosterone and turn it into cortisol.
Yep.
So again, back to the accountable feminine, when we're paying attention to how we're being, right, then we have an effect on whether or not we are experiencing a situation as stressful or not, and whether or not the Prager steal is happening, which makes us tired and cranky. Low testosterone levels make people tired and cranky, and people, men and women. You can have a little boy who hasn't gotten enough rest, which is how men build testosterone, is through rest. This is why they have those things pop up in the morning if they've had a good night's sleep. This is why they produce a result and take a nap, produce a result and do nothing, produce a result, take a nap. They're in a cycle of building and spending testosterone. John Gray started working on this as he got older. And so what happens is, if a man isn't sleeping well, he's not building testosterone, and it makes him cranky. It actually makes him mean. This is something John Gray taught me personally. It makes them mean. High testosterone is not a bad thing. It's low testosterone that makes men mean. It can make a little boy mean when he hasn't slept well. Can you see it?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So each of us has however much was allotted to us. Do you know the 21st day of gestation? Either the Y chromosome kicked in and turned us into a girl, or it didn't. Testosterone-based creatures naturally protect themselves from emotion because, as I found out when my husband died, grief and other forms of emotion burn testosterone like crazy. They can feel themselves losing energy. They can feel themselves being biologically emasculated by letting emotion run.
That's why men don't cry, or men think they can't cry, because
They
they feel like they're losing strength, not just losing.
Absolutely. They can feel
like,
it
I'm not strong.
physically. They can feel it physically that they're being weakened because they're burning up their jet fuel.
So when we tell them, hey, you need to cry about this, he's like, you need to not
give me a week. When I have a month off work, I'll cry. Yeah. I can't afford to cry the rest of the time.
Right.
Yeah. But then as men get older, their testosterone levels fall, their brains rewire because the testosterone keeps it compartmentalized. The verbal centers of their brain get hooked up to all the other parts of their brain. Now their wisdom comes flooding out of them. They can't help it, and we get annoyed by it. Quit giving me advice. But their brain just connected everything they've learned with words.
That's what I think.
Yeah. And so you see a couple like Dan and I mean, I'm known for talking a lot.
Yeah.
Dan's 2 years older than I am. Dan needs to talk longer than I do.
Oh. I wonder when that's going to happen in my house.
Yeah. So this is why, like, if at any moment, if we can pay attention to ourselves and like, okay, there's something I really have to tell you and I need to get it all out and I need you to not interrupt. So if you want to get a piece of paper to make notes of things you would like to ask or say in response to what I'm saying, please do that now. And then no interrupting. And I'll pause from time to time to see if you need a clarification of something I've already said. Just so we don't stack up confusion.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so we can, but if we know that we're in that state of mind, Or we're like, okay, let's chat. Anything you want me to know about you? How was your day? La la la, back and forth. Da, 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 da. If we can tell, if we have enough self-awareness that we can tell that, everything will be different.
Yeah, you taught me that to tell my husband up front, kind of like, this is important. I need to figure this out, or I just need to talk it out. And I don't think you said it that way, but that's the way
Right.
I've learned it. And that if I just tell him at the beginning, babe, I'm struggling with something, I can't figure it out, and I want to talk about it. Then he knows that he needs to start kind of putting on his figure it out cap. But if I straight up say, I need to talk to you, and it's not anything you have to figure out. I just need you to listen and just, do your thing. And he's like, okay. He knows what that is. Like, come
Yeah,
over, pat me,
we call it
like,
holding, we
do
call it
all this
holding the
stuff.
trash.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Just hold the trash. Yeah.
And he
Yeah.
and he just
Steady.
relaxes because the
He
whole
does.
time he's waiting. Where is it? What is it? When do I do it? When do I
Yeah.
insert? Like,
Yeah.
just lets him
The
off the hook.
natural way in the hunting mode, the focused, committed mode, is to listen. What's the problem? What's the problem? What's the problem? Because they hold themselves accountable for giving you a solution. That's what you do for people you care about. You give them a solution. And often we feel insulted, disrespected, we get our feelings hurt, we
What the
want to
heck?
strangle them. So we have to tell them, how to honor me now is just hold the trash so I can get this alien out of my chest. And then I maybe even be able to see what I think. Right. So we talk about this in understanding women, because and men are present. So they're understanding women, and women are understanding themselves in front of men, and men are getting more of an understanding of themselves. But it's very much in the setup. What is the mode we're in?
Wow.
Okay, so
So
all of
much is
that,
hormones. So much is hormones.
so much is hormones, and all of that, what it comes back to, oh boy, there's a part that gets worse. Okay, I'm just gonna put this in,
Go. Do it.
and this is from my doctor. Her first got me started on bioidenticals. I recommend her on my website. She's extraordinary. So vitamin D.
Mm,
Most people don't get enough vitamin D, and without vitamin D, your body can't use the testosterone it's making.
that's right.
So you can have like a 14 or 15 or 16-year-old young man depressed, cranky and depressed. When his testosterone levels are checked, they're fine. They're fine. They're like 1500. That's lots of testosterone. 800 and above will have a man have a sense of well-being at most ages. So they can have really high levels, but and then be tested. They always test it together. But low levels of vitamin D, he can't use his own testosterone. That's why he's depressed. That's why he doesn't have any ambition. That's why he's mean and cranky and sleeping all the time, trying to get access to what he can't get access to. So I'm just going to put that in case any of your wonderful moms have teenage boys that are cranky, which trapping them in the house is one way to keep them cranky, because their instincts are telling them there's nothing I'm going to learn here to help survive.
Yeah. Go do.
Young men come home to be restored, to eat and sleep. And we try to keep them at home. Their instincts, it brings out the worst in them. Do you know when men and boys are at play, when they have no result to produce, and I mean at play, not in competition, at play,
Mm-hmm.
they have the openness and the connectivity of a woman. And it's when we fall in love with them, right? Their attention is just like, wow, you're here, you're connecting with me. And we want it to last forever. And we get hurt when it stops, and they commit themselves, and they're off and focused again.
I see that with Warren when we're golfing. All of a sudden, it's really fun, and we're golfing together and we're playing. And then all of
Mm-hmm.
a sudden, he has a bad shot, and like for another hole, he's like, "Whoa, I gotta."
Yes.
The competition
Yes.
to the course takes place, and I'm like,
Yeah, and whether he's competing with you, with the course, with himself, yes, that'll happen.
but if he
Um,
plays, then he's having more fun. Then he's fun. It's
Exactly. But they have to decide that. We're just playing today.
Yeah,
I'm
I
not
just put
working.
on
I'm
some
not
good.
working on my game. I'm
Yeah,
not working on my game. We're
yeah,
just
we're just
playing.
playing. I put on
And
music and I switched over to like something funny. And not that I'm manipulating him, Allison.
yes, yes.
I'm not. So good. Thank you so much for your time and your
No,
wisdom. I was sitting out on the on the deck on Sunday, and it's really hot in Texas, and I was sweating. And I thought, wow, what would happen if I just went up to Colorado and just sucked everything out of her brain? I
That's
was
why we
thinking
have
about Colorado.
hundreds of we have hundreds of hours of video
But
for
this
that
is
very
like
purpose. And now we have the app, right? So
this is
now
true.
you just pull it out of your pocket. But I want to
You're
thank
wise
you
to
for
do that.
something.
You're wise to
I want
do
to
that.
thank, yeah, I want to thank you for something, Mona.
Sure.
I committed a few weeks ago to doing a Facebook Live later this summer entitled "When Does Gender Matter?"
Mm.
And because what you and I got to talk about here, it's huge, and I think it's one thing that's not meant to be decided politically. It's meant to be decided personally, and if we can teach them to honor themselves, they will find their way.
Yeah,
They really will. And
I
they'll
agree.
end up being the people that we hope they'll be.
I like
Takes
it
all
when you say
patience.
when does the when.
Mhm.
That
When does
is
gender matter?
that is really thought provoking. I can't wait. When are you doing it?
February 23rd.
Oh,
No,
that's a
February
little
7th.
okay.
February 7th. It's not this summer. Well, technically it is. February 7th from 5, it'll start at 5:30 Pacific time. And we do it on Zoom, and we put the link on Instagram so people can come over and join me on Zoom if they want to. And then my social person, Tyler, live streams it on Instagram, and then he edits and puts it on our YouTube channel.
Which is good.
So that's where people can find Alison Armstrong on YouTube. You can find the Facebook lives I've been doing, and I call them Facebook, but they're really Insta. And we poll the people on Instagram for what do they want to hear from me about, and I picked really controversial topics, and
I know you have.
well, because they need me to, and
Yeah, it's
I
like the
can't.
girl that was laying on the porch. She just what I can ask her anything I want. What shall I ask her?
And you also can do that, during our online curriculum. I answer
That's right.
questions 8.5 hours a month. So, and
Yeah.
it's a joy to do it. All right. So I'm
All
going to
right.
come back and look at your beautiful face. Thank you so much.
You're so
Mwah.
welcome. Thank you so much. And moms, I just want to remind you that moms like us, we do things like this. We learn about gender. We learn about hormones. We learn about these things so we can be the moms we want to be, the women we want to be, and the wives we want to be. And again, Allison, you're a treasure. Thank you so much. And little mama,
You're welcome.
we will see you next time on Moms Like Us Do Things Like This. Hi, I hope you liked this episode of the Moms Like Us show. And if you did, I hope that you'll share it. You'll share it with another mom friend because moms like us do things like this. I also hope that you will check out the Moms Like Us Academy, where we take ideas like we've been talking about on the show, but we go deeper. We just don't get inspired and think, ooh, that's a really good idea. I think I want to try that. We actually learn how to do these things and why we need to. And then you know what? You have Mona, the mom mentor, and other master moms that teach the master classes in there They come alongside and we help you implement and really truly change your mom life into the mom life you've always wanted to have, because motherhood isn't a natural talent. It's a skill, sweetie, and you can learn it. So go and check out the Moms Like Us Academy today and find me when you get there and say hi.